To access free topic sheets, worksheets, or to book an online class, visit ilearneasy.co.uk. Plant cells usually have a regular shape. They contain a nucleus, cell membrane, cytoplasm, mitochondria, and ribosomes. However, they also contain other structures that are only found in plant cells. These include cell wall, chloroplast, and vacuole. The cell walls are made from cellulose fibers. The cell wall surrounds the cell membrane. It strengthens the cell and provides support for the plant. Chloroplasts are organelles that contain green pigment. The green pigment is called chlorophyll. Chlorophyll absorbs light energy for photosynthesis. It also contains enzymes required for photosynthesis to take place. Plant cells also have a permanent vacuole. This is filled with fluid or cell sap. The vacuole provides structure for the cell and the plant. The vacuole also stores sugars. Now we have learned the basic structure of plant cells. It's important to remember that not all plant cells look the same. The reason for this is because plant cells are specialized for their functions. For example, phloem cells. These are plant cells that build the transport system for sugars. Their cell walls have holes at each end in order to allow sugar to move from one cell to the next cell. Xylem cells. These are plant cells that build the transport system for water and mineral salts. These cells are strengthened with a hard substance called lignin. The reason for this is because it helps the cell withstand changes in the pressure of water. Plants are living organisms. They have different parts called organs. Each organ has a specific function. The parts of a plant include roots, stem, leaves, and the flower. These organs work together to enable the plant to carry out its life processes. Remember that groups of similar plant cells work together to form tissue. Similar tissues then work together to form an organ. All the different organs then work together to form the organism. In this case, the roots, stem, leaves, and flowers work together to make up the plant. Roots. The roots of a plant help to keep the plant anchored into the ground. This prevents it from being blown away. Roots are also important for nutrition because they contain root hairs. These absorb water and minerals from the soil. The water and nutrients then travel through the plant. In some plants, the roots can also be used for food storage. Stem. The stem of a plant provides support and help to keep the plant upright. This is important because plants need to stay upright in order to absorb sunlight. The stem is also required for nutrition of the plant. This is because it transports the water and nutrients from the root to the leaves and flowers. So, after the roots have absorbed water and nutrients from the soil, the stem allows them to be carried up to the leaves. The leaves of a plant are very important, as this is where the process of photosynthesis takes place. Photosynthesis is the process in which leaves use sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water to create glucose and oxygen. This is essential for the plant to survive and to grow. Therefore, The leaves are required for nutrition. Leaves are usually big and flat in order to absorb a lot of sunlight for photosynthesis. If you would like to learn more about the process of photosynthesis, then click the video here. Flower. Flowers are the reproductive organs of a plant. Flowers have petals which help to protect the parts of the flower, and the petals are usually bright colored and have a nice scent. This is important as it attracts pollinators. The flowers are also involved in producing seeds and fruit. Now let's look closely at the parts of a flower and what their functions are. As previously mentioned, flowers are the reproductive organs of a plant. Flowers have petals that protect parts of the plant. They are colorful and have a nice scent, which attracts pollinators. The sepals are the parts that help to protect an unopened flower. Once the flower blooms, the sepal opens, as shown in the picture. Flowers have male and female parts which are required for the process of reproduction. Anther and filament are the male parts of a flower. We call this the stamen. As you can see, each consists of an anther that's held up on a filament. The anthers produce pollen grains. Pollen grains are vital for the process of pollination and reproduction of the plant. The stigma, style, ovary, and ovule are the female parts of a plant. We call this the pistil. The stigma is the top of the female part of a flower. This is involved in collecting the pollen grains. A pollen tube goes through the style until it reaches the ovary. The pollen tube then fuses with the nucleus of the ovule to complete the process of fertilization. If you would like to learn more about the process of fertilization, then click the video here. Seeds have three main parts: embryo, food store, seed coat. The embryo is an immature plant that will grow to become an adult plant. The food store consists of starch. This is for the young plant to use until it's able to carry out photosynthesis. The seed coat is the protective outer covering. Germination is the process in which the seed begins to develop into a new young plant. This process is controlled by enzymes. There are a few factors required for the plant to grow. These are sunlight, water, oxygen, and warm temperature. The water required comes from the soil. Oxygen is required for aerobic respiration. Warm temperature increases enzyme activity and ultimately the growth rate of the plant. The process of germination begins when a seed is put into the soil. The seed begins to absorb water. As it does this, the seed coat becomes soft and swells. The seed also requires nutrients, which it gets from its food storage in the cotyledons. After this, the seed ruptures and begins to grow roots and shoots. The root grows into the soil to search for more water and nutrients. The root also helps to keep the seed anchored in place. Then the shoot grows upwards through the soil towards a source of light and air. The seed coat falls off during this process. As the plant continues to grow, it will need plenty of air, water, light, nutrients, and enough space to grow. The reason the plant needs all of these things is because it will need to carry out the process of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the process in which carbon dioxide, water, and light energy produces oxygen and glucose. Once the roots and shoots are big enough to carry out the process of photosynthesis, the cotyledon falls off and becomes part of the soil. The plant then begins to grow leaves, flowers, and fruit. If you would like to learn more about photosynthesis, then click the video here. Photosynthesis is a process that takes place inside a plant. It's when plants use light to make food. An easy way to remember this is photo means light and synthesis means to put something together. This chemical reaction is vital for a plant to survive and to grow. Plants need food to respire, to grow, and to reproduce. Plants are producers. This means that they are able to make their own food. They do this by the process of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis takes place in the leaves of plants, specifically in the chloroplasts of leaves containing chlorophyll. The equation for photosynthesis is carbon dioxide from the air, water, and light energy, usually from sunlight. This reaction produces oxygen and glucose. The formula for carbon dioxide is CO2. The formula for water is H2O. The formula for oxygen is O2. The formula for glucose is C6H12O6. Firstly, carbon dioxide and water enter the leaf. Carbon dioxide enters through the stomata of the leaf via diffusion. Water is absorbed by the roots from the soil. This water is then transported to the leaves by the xylem vessels. Sunlight provides the energy for the process to take place. The chlorophyll in plants can absorb the light energy. The products are oxygen and glucose. Oxygen is released back into the air and it's released through the stomata of the leaf. Glucose is a source of energy for the plant. Glucose is transported around the plant by the phloem vessels. Leaves are adapted for photosynthesis in a few different ways. Firstly, leaves are big and they have a large surface area. This allows more sunlight to be absorbed. Secondly, leaves are green due to the chlorophyll in the chloroplasts. This helps them to absorb sunlight. Thirdly, leaves are thin, which allows the diffusion of gases in and out of the leaf. Fourthly, the leaves have vascular tissues. Tubes that carry food from the leaves to the rest of the plant are known as phloem. Tubes that carry water and nutrients from the roots to the other parts of the plant are called the xylem. Now that we have learnt what photosynthesis is, we must understand that if any of these elements are limited, then it will affect the rate of photosynthesis. So, if there's not enough carbon dioxide, water, or light energy, then the rate of photosynthesis will be affected. Therefore, the rate of photosynthesis will be lower. Other factors that affect photosynthesis are the temperature and the amount of chlorophyll in leaves. So if the temperature is too high, then enzymes will denature. And if there is less chlorophyll in the leaves, then this means that less light energy can be absorbed. Ultimately, both will result in a lower rate of photosynthesis. Flowers are the reproductive organs of a plant. Anther and filament are the male parts of a plant. We call this the stamen. As you can see, each consists of an anther that's held up on a filament. The anthers produce pollen grains. The stigma, style, ovary and ovule are the female parts of a flower. We call this the carpel or pistil. First, pollination occurs. This is the process in which pollen from one plant is transferred onto the stigma of another plant. Pollination can occur in a few different ways. Insect pollination is where an insect carries the pollen from one flower to another flower. These insects are attracted to the bright-colored petals and the nice smell. The pollen sticks to the insect and it's carried all the way to another flower where the pollen sticks to the stigma. Pollination can also occur by wind and water. So this is where the wind or the water carries the pollen to another flower. Plant fertilization is the process in which the male and female gametes are fused together in order to produce a fertilized egg. So the pollen that's transferred to another flower's stigma initiates the process of fertilization. Now that the pollen grains have been transferred onto the stigma, a pollen tube grows through the style until it reaches the ovary. Inside the ovary, the nucleus of the pollen passes along the tube. This then fuses with the nucleus of the ovule. This is when the process of fertilization is complete. Once fertilization is complete, the ovules become seeds and the rest of the carpel becomes a fruit. The petals of the flower die in this process. For example, an apple which contains seeds inside. It's important to remember that some plants can reproduce without pollen or an egg. vascular plants, non-vascular plants. In this video, we will learn the difference between vascular and non-vascular plants. Vascular plants are plants that have specialized vascular tubes to transport water and food around a plant. There are two types of vascular tubes, phloem and xylem. Tubes that carry food from the leaves to the rest of the plant are known as phloem. Tubes that carry water and nutrients from the roots to the other parts of a plant are known as xylem. These types of plants are usually tall and are found on land. For example, trees and ferns. Non-vascular plants are plants that don't have specialized vascular tubes. Therefore, these types of plants don't carry its materials through tubes. They are usually small and are found in damp and moist areas. These types of plants get their nutrients by slowly passing them from one cell to another cell. For example, moss.